Let me ask you a question. What if the real reason people aren't getting hired anymore has nothing to do with their skills? I recently had to fill a position at the company I work for, actually two positions, and I thought the hard part would be finding the right skills, finding someone who could actually do the job. But honestly, the process has left me worried about how we communicate. And speaking of this, in this episode, we're going to get real about what's actually happening when you apply for a job and what surprised me the most. And let's just start with candidates. And I had no shortage of candidates. These are good resumes, look like smart people. On paper, I saw a lot of yes, that it would be hard for me to make a decision. And I remember sitting there behind my screen, wanting to say yes, actually rooting for people. But then something else kept getting in the way. People would apply, I would take the time to go through each resume. I would schedule interviews with people I thought would be a good, strong fit. And then, boom, they would just disappear. I would not get an email, no apology, just gone. Others would cancel 5 minutes before the interview, claiming they had emergencies and repeated emergencies. Some would submit a resume and then immediately message me asking, "So, when do I come in for my interview?" And a few showed up looking like they had just rolled out of bed. No preparation, no awareness of the moment they were stepping into. None of this was about their skills, it was behavior. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. So, what I'm about to walk you through are the three fastest ways I saw capable people quietly talk themselves out of the job, not because they didn't have the skills, but because they didn't realize how they were coming across. This is the view from the other side of the screen. And before I get to the first behavior, you should also know that I don't practice ageism. I look at every last candidate, every last application myself. An IA program does not do it, or my team member looks at it. And I will tell you at the end of this episode that there is a generation that shows up more professionally prepared than any other, a clear winner. But let's get started with those three behaviors. And I'm telling you, this shows up over 90% of the time with all applicants. The first one I call main character syndrome, and it usually shows up early. So it looks a little like this. I reach out to schedule an interview. I offer a few options. I'm trying to coordinate calendars here. And I get a response like, "I can only meet Tuesday at 2." That's it. There's no flexibility, no acknowledgement, no, "Does this work for you?" If you're listening to this and thinking, well, that's just being clear, I want you to stay with me because on the surface, it looks and feels like confidence. And a lot of people think that's why, what they're projecting. But here's what it actually communicates: a loss of perspective. Work isn't a stage where one person is the star and everyone else is supporting cast. Might be in some situations, but not in most. It's an ecosystem, it's a team, and every role has to flex a little bit. When you send an email like that, you're not asserting boundaries. You're signaling that you don't understand the system you're trying to enter. You're treating a professional relationship like your own personal DoorDash order, expecting it to arrive on your terms. And here's the self check moment. Ask yourself something honestly if you've been guilty of this. Have you ever assumed the company would adjust to you before you'd even met them? If the answer is yes, it doesn't necessarily make you a bad person, but it might explain why doors quietly closed on the job that you wanted. The second behavior is what I call the anxiety loop. And this one is tricky because it feels like the right thing to do. It usually starts with good intentions. In fact, three emails in one day. They'll say things like just checking in, making sure you saw this, following up again. And if you're listening and thinking I've done that because I care, I get it. But here's the uncomfortable part. Some of the most qualified candidates did this: three, four, five on emails in one day. And some of the least qualified candidates did not do that. That's when I realized this really wasn't about ambition, it was about anxiety. When people feel powerless, they start acting instead of thinking. Psychologically speaking, they call this the effect focused rumination. So when you're clicking send, it becomes a way to calm your nervous system. But on the receiving end of that, when you're sending all of those emails in one day, it doesn't read as passion, it reads as panic, even desperation. And in roles that require calm decision making under pressure, this is a red flag, a warning sign, because we're not hiring your urgency, we're hiring your judgment. So let me give you a real example. This is an extreme example. This actually happened to me. I had a candidate email me asking me about the position. That's not a problem. That actually is initiative. This was the first email contact. I answered a few questions they had and asked them to forward me their resume. So bypass the job. I had it up on Deed, bypass that, and I could review it and follow up with this person. Most of us would expect a response like this: well, thank you for reviewing my resume. Here it is. I look forward to hearing from you. Instead, the response I got was, I'm free right now. Let's do the interview. I had yet to receive the resume. I didn't schedule an interview. This person wanted it right now. Out of curiosity, I looped in the team member that whose this role would report to, and against better judgment, she decided to do the interview on the spot. And she told me afterward that it was the most awkward interview she had ever had to date. Now, it was a virtual interview and he was on his phone. There's nothing wrong with that. Many people record entire YouTube channels, successful ones, on their phone. But he was moving all around his house, his kitchen, his bathroom, back again. There was no focus, there was no awareness. She ended the interview early. And do you know what he asked at the end? When do I start? Okay. After that, he just kept emailing, contacting both of us repeatedly, asking when he could start. And at some point, it stopped feeling like eager in any type of initiative and it was feeling very uncomfortable. Now, most people aren't that extreme, but here's the lesson: initiative without professionalism turns into pressure. So ask yourself, have you ever followed up because you were calm and confident or because you were scared to be forgotten? That difference matters. And usually there's a rule of thumb: follow up within a week after the first initial contact. The third behavior I am seeing 90% of the time is what I call false intimacy. Now, this is the tone shift that happens too fast. And it starts out in emails. A candidate will send you an email and it will start with, hey. And then it'll be followed up with text style messages where you have shortened words, you have no punctuation, and then oversharing personal struggles before any rapport has had the chance to exist. And listen, I understand why this happens. We live online, we have blurred boundaries in the digital world, and we're also told to be ourselves everywhere. I would tell you that professionalism isn't pretending, it's just context awareness. We are so desperate to be authentic that we've forgotten to be appropriate. There is a difference between being real and being reckless. When you treat a hiring manager like a close friend before trust exists, any rapport is allowed to happen, you're not building connection. You're showing that you don't know how to read the room. And if you're thinking, well, I was just trying to be likable, I want you to hear this clearly. Being respected comes before being liked in this situation. And respect is built by understanding where you are and what the moment requires. And also, yes, anxiety explains some of what we're seeing, but there is also a loss of responsibility happening, a loss of basic courtesy. You can see that throughout the entire global world. There's a loss of this basic courtesy, there's a loss of professionalism, of remembering that, of how you show up matters. We did not forget how to do this overnight, but somewhere along the way, we decided effort was optional and kindness could wait. I've talked to several hiring managers. This is not just a me problem. And that doesn't just hurt hiring managers, by the way. It also hurts potential candidates because every time someone ghosts an interview or treats the process casually, or assumes the world should bend to them, the bar gets higher for everyone else. Then there's more rules, more skepticism, less grace, and then no one wins. And so this is not about blaming one side or the other. It's just about ownership because this is a two-sided mirror. So if you are hiring, you also need to ask yourself, are you communicating clearly? Are you closing loops when you can? Are you treating candidates with compassion, kindness, even when the answer is no? And if you're a candidate, ask yourself, if you're looking for a job, am I showing respect for the moment I'm stepping into? Am I leading with professionalism, not pressure? Am I assuming entitlement or earning trust? Because, like I mentioned, the hiring process is a two-way mirror, and we all contribute to the culture that we're out here complaining about. And yes, there are real problems. Don't get me wrong. Ageism exists in hiring. I did a whole episode on that. A lot of other things exist in hiring. But I want to hear from you. If you've been on the hiring side, what behaviors have surprised you the most? What made you immediately trust someone or immediately hesitate despite their skills? And if you're a candidate, what moments left you confused, frustrated, or discouraged? Did you feel unseen? In what moment did you feel unseen? Share your stories. And it's not to shame anyone, but to remind us that this isn't abstract. This is real stories from real people, real opportunities that may be missed, and real consequences from that. And if we can start talking about this honestly, without getting upset, without blame, and without excuses, maybe we remember how to show up again because I'm going to tell you, professionalism isn't outdated. We need to get back to that type of consideration. And in a world that feels increasingly careless, being considerate is actually a competitive advantage. And so the question is, what kind of professional culture are we becoming and what kind do we actually want to be? Because I can tell you that there is a big difference in behavior depending on what generation is applying. It's in a specific space, a culture. I promise to tell you which generation is the most professionally reliable. And, drum roll, please, because yes, it's actually our older generation. I'm sure that's up for debate, but this is just my experience so far. Don't be upset with the messenger. If you have experienced something different, please let me know. But so far, this is what I got. Thank you for listening. Thank you for staying with a conversation that's uncomfortable at times but necessary. And thank you most of all for being willing to look at how we show up when something is on the line. If this episode resonated with you or challenged you or made you think about a moment you wish you'd handled differently, I hope you carry that forward. If you haven't already, don't forget to follow the podcast. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, take care of your mind, body, and soul.